Awesome. Well, hi everyone. I hope you all had a great holiday and break and were able to, spend some quality time with your families or your children and hopefully relax. I checked the public comment and I didn't see any, so we can forego that. I'll do quick board member introduction so people know who is here. I'm Bria Washington. I am the PTA president. We have Amanda Watson, who is our equity and advocacy co-chair. We have Anna Zaire, who's one of our co-secretaries. We have Bethany Zah, who's the other co-secretary. Brett is our communications chair, right? Is that right? Okay. Sarah Muser is our ground chair. Megan Pollard is our PTA SIT liaison. Bob Pleasance is our EC chair. We have Sonia Marquez, who is the assistant principal, and Teddy Gray, who is our treasurer here so far. And I wanted to open up the floor for any gratitude or appreciation. I know it seems like we just met because we met and then we were on a break for such a long time.
I have one. I'd like to just appreciate the PTA for quickly approving a grant that Primary submitted to get packs of phonics readers for our kindergartners, and they were delivered to my house 2 days later, and I'm excited that we get to pass them out at supply pickup on Friday. So thank you to the PTA.
Anyone else have anything? Awesome. Well, you all should have been able to review the December board meeting minutes. Are there any changes that need to be made? If not, then I move that we approve these by consent. And they will be approved as written. And I also wanted to make sure that you all reviewed the board meeting action items. So submit any ideas to me for a membership drive, any type of membership drive, just to try to get our membership numbers up. We are still, I think, under 100 members for the PTA, and we have a goal of like 220. So it would be great if we could reach that. If you have decided since our last meeting that you're not continuing on in your role for next school year, please just let me know. And I think that's it for this. So awesome. Kristen just popped on. Kristen, are you ready to do a fundraising update? We're actually moving pretty fast tonight.
Sure. So actually, I just got a text from Megan. She was going to talk about the t-shirt numbers, and she said she put them on the agenda.
It's 216.
Yeah, so we did, it was all Megan. She did a quick little flash sale and just sold the last of our current inventory and kind of like practiced using the Member Hub portal, and that seemed to be really successful. And so we're probably going to look into doing a bigger sale in the spring at the end of the school year. So that's just a quick update on that. And then I think she shared some numbers about the portrait fundraiser too, but that just generally I think went pretty well, which is good. The sort of the bigger things that we wanted to sort of discuss with the board were the like a realistic look at the budget and trying to understand how much we need to focus on fundraising in the spring. We have currently, I think, like somewhere around $7,000 that we are budgeted to raise in the spring. But we're sort of feeling like unless we put forth a really big effort and another large event, that's going to be pretty difficult to achieve. But we were also like, do we I mean, we kind of just came up with that number in thin air last year. So do we need to do that or not? I'm not sure, but sorry, hold on one second. Sorry. So that's just like a deeper question perhaps for us to discuss at some point today, maybe. But the other sort of piece of that is, okay, we have some things that we can do in the spring, but we feel like they're more about community building and then secondarily fundraising. So, and the ideas that we're talking about is like doing a book sale with in conjunction with the regulator. Like I said, doing the t-shirt sale. We have toyed around and started conversations about doing some sort of like socially distant, like we really need to raise funds. But considering all that's going on this year, I personally am like not really excited about asking parents for money anymore. So anyway, that's just like our quick update. And I'd just love to hear people's thoughts on like, how much are you feeling the fatigue of being asked to contribute to the school when our kids are not in school? And if we should just focus sort of on building community and providing, resources to families that are pinched, rather than trying to meet the fundraising goal that we set at the beginning of the year. So anyway, that was a lot to just lay on everyone. But I'd love to hear your thoughts.
This is Meg. I'll say I think maybe part of at least two thoughts. One is I think maybe re-examining the budget would be helpful, because I think I would like to see us, to the extent that we can, use our budget to both help address the additional cost at the school associated with virtual learning, as well as really help and support our school community. I just don't know. So I know Teddy's going to give us a budget update. So I think that's just something, right? Let's look on the expense side as well. And then from my perspective, I think I shared this in the agenda. I reached out to after school families to raise money for the 7 after school teachers who are still working, who are helping to provide support at the learning centers, and just had an overwhelming response. I mean, people were more than happy to, and then maybe in that unique case, it was also just, families hadn't heard from the after school families. They were glad to know that the teachers, they were glad to know that they were still supporting Durham public school students. But I don't know. I think it's okay to continue asking. I understand why you may not want to be the person to continue doing the asking. But I think if people want to say no, they want to say no. I think we just need to be clear on what we're using the resources to do. So that's why flipping it back to like, what are the needs that the PTA could help support, I think could be helpful.
I'm down to look at our budget. I know we haven't spent nearly what we normally would in a normal school year. So I don't know how urgent it is to raise all of that money. I mean, the more we raise this year, the better we are for next year, just because of how we do our budget, which we've talked about. We probably should reevaluate how we budget. But I understand not wanting to continue to ask families for things. But I do think like things like a t-shirt sale might not be like might not be like a bad idea, just because like I do think there are some families that would want like Watts gear, even though they haven't been in the school all year. That like something like being able to like just order like a t-shirt or like to for their kids, especially like some of our newer families, might be something that might be a way to get at least some money. Probably not $7,000 worth of money, but I don't necessarily know if we need to figure out a carnival alternative this year. That just seems like a lot, given everything going on.
Yeah, I agree that we don't need to raise
Like,
that much.
okay. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Bob.
I was just gonna say, yeah, I think that trying to go for 7,000 is a lot, but I know that we were also trying to rebuild the coffers a little bit this year. So, like was said before, making sure that we're looking at revisiting the budget, making sure that we're not sort of putting next year's group at a deficit or sort of at any kind of unexpected loss. And I also agree with the potential of doing something that could support learning centers or other folks, and that might be where people's energy is for as far as giving and sort of giving back to the community. And also, if people have the energy on the PTA or in the school have energy for something like t-shirts or sweatshirts, I also agree with what Rio was saying as far as that being something that could help some families and kids feel connected to Watts in a different way, since they haven't necessarily been in the building. So all good so far, all good ideas.
Yeah, I was just going to say that like the sort of the two paths that Megan and I were considering are, going like full throttle and trying to pull off a new event in this end of the school year, primarily because we're not doing a carnival. I don't think a silent auction is realistic. And so that new event was something we've been toying around with for a few years, which is doing some sort of like fun run or dance-a-thon. And there are like many companies that you can work with to do that. And they've come up with creative ways to do it in a socially distant manner. So that's something, but it would be all new for us. And I think it would be, I think the focus on that, as much as you try to make it about community, is about raising money. It's a big fundraising push. The other sort of way we were thinking of moving is to focus more on the book sale like we did last year at the regulator, doing something similar to that. It didn't raise a ton of money, but I think there are some ways we could probably beef it up and focus more on raising money, spending a little more wisely. I know that Raya last year spent a lot of money to have like a professional illustrator come in. And so we could, not do that and just be more focused on channeling families there to buy books and get 20% of all the book sales, maybe do some sort of like supplemental thing along with it. So focusing on that, and then focusing on t-shirts and just seeing, where we end up, hopefully raising maybe half of that 7,000, maybe around like 3,000 or so. But we both were like, we're willing to kind of do both, or even try to pull off all three. But we would definitely need more support. And I think we also we're just feeling the fatigue of, okay, we're going to do a book sale, and then we're going to do a t-shirt sale, and then we're going to do a fun run. And people are going to be like, what is happening? About the end of year teacher appreciation and staff appreciation week. And so I think there will be, kind of all in the midst of this, they'll be asking parents to contribute to that, especially since Rachel's really had to spend a lot of her budget already this year. So it just feels to me like a lot, but I'm certainly willing to try and to do some more research on the fun run idea. But it kind of sounds like from Meg and Bob that, I don't want to mischaracterize you, but maybe just move forward and try to focus our energy on these smaller things and not try to do something big and new, or I don't know.
I guess I didn't even kind of say directly what I was thinking, but if we re-examined the budget and it was clear that there's very specific needs that won't get met unless we raise X amount, I even think just a traditional fundraiser without having to put together an event may be fine. I just think particularly in the spring, there would need to be a real concrete ask.
Hey, this is Teddy. I just want to mention, looking at the budget, we're not even at a quarter spent. So, I think it's a real good time to reinvestigate the budget, especially to think if we're not going to be spending this money. I don't think it's worth the effort to, if we're going to end up at the year being maybe like at 50%, you know, I totally agree that we shouldn't spend the effort to, you know, raise this money, especially if we're not going to be spending that money and making the ask for something we're not even going to spend. So, you know, I several people have mentioned this, and I think, you know, maybe next month would be a good time to just look at some of those expense lines to see if we really plan on using them for the year. If we do, then maybe revisit some fundraising. But, you know, if at the rate we're at, we're not even going to get to half of our spend. So, you know, I think now would be a good time to look at our planned expenses for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I think I know I'm going to send out a reminder to our teachers, to our teacher liaison, to send to our teachers this week to that they have their $200 classroom fund. So if they want, now would be the time to like start giving us receipts. So it's not just like a waterfall at the end of the school year that we do have the funds. But we haven't spent a bunch of money this year because we just haven't been in school. And I also wanted to just clarify that like Rachel's line for teacher staff appreciation, we discussed last month, just evaluating, I think in February or early March, and pulling from another line that hasn't been used, because there are still a few lines, like I guess like field trip and other things, end of school year celebrations and things like that, that we realize that they're not going to get used, or there won't be as much of a need. And so pulling from those lines. So I don't think we're going to ask families specifically to donate for that, because we do have the money in our budget. So that isn't a plan to be a family ask, because that's essentially what the annual fund is supposed to be for, so that we're not continuing asking for specific things. We're like, one time you give money and we will work with that. Yeah, I think this might be a good time to look at our budget. So I'm gonna give it over to Teddy. And Teddy, you should be able to share your screen.
Okay. Thanks, Bria. Let me bring up the excuse me, I'll start with the balance sheet as I always do. And this shows our cash on hand. So just give me a second. So everybody hopefully can see where we stand, and we're in good shape. Thank you so much for the fundraising committee for all the work they've done. So far, cash on hand between what we have at Bank of America and over at PayPal, we're over $80,000. So that's our actual assets, cash, and it's, you know, cash. And then it's balanced against what we have in the different fund lines. So our general fund is now over 46,000. These other two funds, the Leo Fund and the Media Center Holding Fund, right now are not much activities going on. Of course, no one's taking contributions for the Leo Fund anymore, and we do have this money in the reserve fund balance, and that's something towards the end of the year we probably need to visit and see how much we want to leave in it. I think in the past that I've mentioned the PTA or national PTA recommendations that you should have at least anywhere between half to a full year's of expenses in this line. So based on what we spent last year, we're definitely in the ballpark, since we spent under $40,000. But towards the end of this year, we can revisit it. We should put money in this line. So this is the assets we have on hand. And now I will jump over to the income statement. 1 second. Sorry about that, just give me 1 second. So the income statement, hopefully everybody sees that, shows expenses coming in versus expenses coming out. I will blow it up a little bit. And the big change between last month and this month is the annual fund is much bigger. We brought in over $14,000 was added to the annual fund this line, thanks to the hard work of the fundraising team. So thank you again for that. You also see the t-shirt sales are here. So we raised we got $205 for that. I just received, so it did not hit this month, but I just received the checks for the family portrait fundraiser, which was nearly $2,000. This $1,250 amount right here was from last year that we got paid in this year. So it will slightly, it can throw off our numbers when we're planning for the budget next year. So we just have to remember that we don't want to consider this 1250 amount when we budget for next year. And in terms of expenses, we had hardly any expenses come in this month. The one big hit was we did spend close to $700 out of our pandemic relief fund, but otherwise there weren't many expenses going out this month. So mainly the big activity was just the $14,000 that came in. But I'm going to scroll down just so everybody can see this. So far, we're halfway into the year. We spent $17,400. We budgeted for $72,000. So you can see as I mentioned, we're not even quite at a quarter of what we plan to spend. So, so there's a lot of the budget that hasn't been touched at this point. And I know Bria did mention, and I can also send you a list, Bria, of who has requested classroom funds. I can give a list of that would help to show who's used it and who hasn't used it so far. So that would be good if we could start getting, making sure that teachers are taking advantage of the $200 that are allotted to them. So not much activity except for that big $14,000 hit that that came in this month, which was great. So that's all I have.
This is Kristen. I just have a question about that 17,000, how you said it's a quarter of the spending, but isn't the spending actually 46,000? Right? Because like the 27 or whatever it is going to be carried over. Sorry if this is a.
Yeah. No. I mean, yes, we have that weird thing every year. I mean, the thing is we have, some of it gets carried over, and I know every year, and someone's brought up a good point that it doesn't, we added last year's carryover to this year to the budget. So yeah, it is because if you look at the budget, we planned for it with a deficit of 31,000, which is a little bit, that was the money that came in from last year's budget that went over to this year's budget. So, okay.
I guess I'm just trying to get like an accurate picture of spending. But so you're saying even if we double that spending, then like, $37,000 total, we're still well under the 46 that we've.
Yeah, the budget was built with that $31,000 that came over from last year, and that does not include the reserve fund.
Okay.
So I do not know. I don't necessarily think that's the best way to budget. It seems to work out every year. I know someone brought it up at one of the early meetings that seemed a little strange, and I sort of agree with it. And I'm not an accountant, so I can't speak to that. But yeah, the budget was built with the leftover amount, and it seems like that's been, from what Emily mentioned at the first meeting of the year, that's how it seems like it's done. And I guess every year we never hit the budget amount, so that money just rolls over into the next year's budget. So, I don't know if that's best practice. If we do have leftover money, maybe put most of that money into the reserve fund and then truly create a budget from scratch where we plan on, spending what we get from fundraising, try to make those two balance each other, rather than every year we have this sort of money that rolls over that doesn't truly get spent, and then we build that into every next year's budget. So
yeah. Sorry, I just was like trying to get a gauge of spending. And
yes, yeah. So if we truly spent everything, we would definitely not have as big of a budget, to plan for next year.
But like looking at what we've spent so far, if we just like roughly, if we double that, we're still, I'm just thinking of this from like the fundraising perspective, and I'm like feeling badly that we're not going to likely meet that $7,000 spring fundraising goal. So I'm just looking at this, and it's making me feel better, because I'm like, well, we probably won't spend it anyway.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, personally, I personally, unless we really think we're going to hit that big money mark, I too would be hesitant to be reaching out and asking. That's a lot of effort on your part, and it's an ask. And we definitely know we're going to spend it. I mean, once again, this is my personal opinion. I'd be for it, but I know that's a lot of effort for you. So, in the fundraising committee. So the trajectory we're at, I don't think we're going to hit, at 100% or anywhere near close to that amount.
Well, that's helpful. Thanks.
Sure.
And a lot of the expenses we had in first semester or first half of the year are one-time expenses for the whole year. It's like we did like a lot of like payments out to like our software things that we don't have to worry about that we wouldn't double. So I don't think we'll double this budget. I don't think we'll double our spending in this last half of the year unless something crazy happens. Okay, awesome. Anyone else have any questions about the budget? Okay, awesome. Well, next week we will have our scheduled PTA meeting. However, it's been decided that it's going to be a joint PTA and SIT town hall to discuss the board's decision from this Thursday. It's kind of hard to plan for that meeting, not knowing the board's decision, but I sent an email to administration today to talk about scheduling a meeting for Friday between us, just so we can hammer out all those details and be ready for Monday. I do know Monday we're going to have a SIT vote so they can vote in their members, as well as have that vote to move the money from, I think, Libertad. We discussed it. I need to look at our December meeting minutes to cover where we went over from our PTA expenses. But other than that, we don't actually have to present anything, which is nice. But it will be good to be able to hear what's going to come for the remaining of the semester and learning. So, do you have anything to add? I don't know.
Yeah, so I think all eyes will be on the school board meeting on Thursday night. So the decision will come directly from the school board. So if you want to tune in, they live stream on YouTube. And so what we will do after Thursday night's vote is we will meet as a staff on Friday to kind of process together what that might look like for our staff. And then, as Bria mentioned, we, as in me, Patty, Bria, and Sarah, will meet to prepare for our town hall on Monday at 6 p.m. So Monday night's meeting will be kind of a debrief, or, a minute to process what second semester is going to look like. Again, they haven't voted yet, but whatever they do decide on Thursday night will carry us through to the rest of the year. So you can expect that, it won't be for just a month or a quarter, but that'll hold us for the next 18 weeks. So we're kind of excited. We have no idea which way they're going to go, but we are excited about the possibility of being able to settle in, because ever since March, we've been in this holding pattern of, let's make it to the end of the quarter, or let's make it to the end of the year, or let's make it through first quarter. And so now the decision that they make on Thursday, we can finally settle into that and not feel like we have something or, trying to make it to the next benchmark. So I think more than anything else, we're excited about trying to get through to be able to figure out what we're doing, and now let's make a plan and implement this plan. So we kind of have, if this, then that. But I mean, it could go any number of ways. And so we have a lot of contingencies right now up in the air. So thankfully Thursday night, hopefully we'll be able to get a decision and be able to move on with our lives and see how the rest of the year is going to play out.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. So after that, our next our next event as a PTA would be Black History Month officially. However, I also think the PTA normally provides funds for an MLK celebration through the staff, and I don't know if that's been discussed this year as something that's going to happen. I know last year I think they brought in, this was a storyteller. But so we do have that to consider, as well as all of the Black History Month planning. And I see Joanna popped on. If you want to discuss that.
Yeah, I guess it was perfect timing because I was like, oh my goodness, it's 6:15. Even though it's like been on the calendar, I've been prepping, right? Oh my goodness. Okay, hi guys. I'm here. I can't even see anybody but Bria, but yeah, there's been some planning and discussing, and I'd love if outside of this meeting, people are interested in kind of brainstorming and figuring this out, but there were some initial ideas. Donna Washington came last year with CAPS money, and that was completely separate from Black history, which is kind of my vibe in general, that Black history is our history and that we need to really incorporate it in other parts of the school curriculum outside of February. So I don't know about MLK Day in history. I've been there since Cameron was in pre-K, but I don't know that there was an MLK thing that I can remember that was separate. It was, I think, just kind of all involved in Black history. But what I like a theme. And so the way I kind of was thinking in my head of pulling it together was the power of the word and even like the absence of it, really. So ideas about like peaceful protest and use of poetry and maybe an author study. And so all of these things where, African Americans have been using their word to share and grow and contribute to our country. So that's like a theme that I thought could be generic enough to reach all grade levels, but powerful enough that we really could dive deep into some areas. And then there was the idea of a scavenger hunt around Durham. And so Durham thankfully has like a rich history. And we could certainly point out maybe 4 places to go in the 4 weekends in February. And there were some other ideas, but I'm just wondering about the power of the word. It's getting loud over there. The power of the word theme, if that is flowing with what teachers are thinking, or what other staff that are on the board have ideas about, or how that would flow, if that works or not. I don't know. Anyhow, that's it.
Awesome. Joanna, is there anything you need from the board to help with this?
Yeah, I would certainly love some kind of committee to help me work the details out of this. This is kind of like a broad, generic thing with some details. But I think funds are, I forget what the budget is for this, Bria, maybe you remember, 350 or something, I think. Is that right? But I don't know that there's a lot of money that is needed other than supplies to send home with kids to do things on their own. But obviously there's no, big dinner and all that other stuff. So that's all I can think that the board might be able to offer, other than, like I said, suggestions from teachers and staff, and whether or not you think that would vibe with what's going on this year, if it's too much or not enough or whatever. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, if you are willing to help Joanna, please email her. Her contact information is on our Google Drive, but I could also put it in the minutes or send it to Anne or Bethany. I don't know I'm sorry, I didn't figure out who's taking minutes tonight. But I will send it so that they go in our minutes so that you all can contact Joanna. If you have any ideas, also send them her way. She would very much appreciate them. And then we will discuss, or maybe Joanna, me and you can discuss if there's anything else that you need as you get going.
Joanna, if you need help it might be worth sending an email to room parents. I think there might be some who would be interested. It's not a financial ask, so there might be some people and it's like a short stint, 1 month, so you might get some help if you ask some room parents to send out some messages.
All right, try that.
I did want to add, maybe this is also an ask for a room parent that kind of goes along. I know we do mystery readers. We have done it in at least our kids' classroom, Joanna. But I know that sometimes Black History Month, we've done like mystery readers, giving them books to read, and that's going to be harder to do this time. So maybe getting parents to record themselves reading a book and being able to send them out to the teachers that are Black history based or Black character based, just as a way, because I know maybe not every class even has Black students. I'm not sure on the numbers, but that could be something else that we could do even as a board. If you all have books at home that you would be willing to film yourself reading and sending to Joanna, that could work. Or if you need a book, I have lots of books. So, and no one sent in a committee or board member updates. Does anyone have anything they want to add? Awesome. So we still need to find a treasurer, a vice president, a family involvement chair, a fundraising chair, and an EC chair for next year. So we have, is that 5? We have 5 spots on the board that need to be filled. So I'm thinking at this point, it might be a good idea to just do like a general interested in serving on the PTA board to the listserv. Here are some things that are available if you have any experience, and just get like, if anyone's interested. I know it's hard. It feels harder this year to get people involved just because we're not at school and there's a lot of stuff going on for everybody. But we definitely need a treasurer and a vice president. We can't really operate as a PTA without them for next year. And also like our fundraising, family involvement, and EC all do a lot. So it would be great if we also had those before the year started next year, before 2021-22 started. So if you know anyone and you want to nominate someone, you can send them to me or Amanda. Tell them first maybe, but it would be a good idea to just think of some names. If you know anyone who you think might be a good fit, just let us know. And I think the last thing is to review the updated listserv policy. So me, Bethany, and Megan met to update our listserv policy, and then so we wanted to present what we discussed to the board. So let me pull that up. Can everyone see this? Is it the right screen? Okay. So the PTA listserv guidelines were originally adopted in 2016, I believe. And just with everything that went on at the very beginning of the school year, we decided it was a good idea to kind of look over them and see if there's anything that wasn't clear that we could clarify, or maybe anything that we needed to add or remove. And so all of the changes are marked in orange. And so the first thing, everything is very standard, just listing who owns it. We have moderators, what the moderators can do, and how we change these. And so they get changed by a majority vote of the PTA board. We have member listserv membership. They can be open to current, future, and past student, school staff, and NC PTA outreach staff. We did mention that we don't know if we need to put like a cutoff for past parents, because there are some this is a large group, and I think there are some families that have probably been on who have not been at Watts for years and they're still on it. I don't think it matters, but just something to consider. Membership is approved by the current listserv moderators, and they do have to state their relationship to the school before they can just be approved. So we're not just letting anyone join the PTA listserv, just for safety and because some things that do just get discussed are sensitive. So anyone can post a listserv, message approval, and then we added that if your message is not approved, one of the moderators will contact you telling you why it wasn't approved. So it's not just like we don't approve it and then you don't know, because I think that can also lead to people being like, well, why, and having questions and getting frustration. So we're trying to just make it as easy and as direct as possible. Asking that people sign with their relationship to Watts, so people know who you are. Message topics. This was one of the big ones that we altered. So messages on any topic and relevant to Watts, PTA, and surrounding community are appropriate. The messages on sensitive and controversial topics are allowed. However, if messages seem offensive, this is what we added, they may be moderated and not passed through. If messages are intended for specific staff, teachers, or administration, please communicate with them directly versus on the listserv. Even if your message and then also just to that note, if your message is posted and it seems like it maybe is directed towards someone or something, it might not receive a response. And that was to clarify that the listserv isn't a place for you to send comments to administration or comments to specific teachers. Those should be directed to that party. But somehow if a message got through that maybe need to be answered by someone, you might not get an answer by sending it through the listserv. It's better to send it to a party. You're not guaranteed a response on the listserv. Commercial messages, we just originally it said no promoting of commercial or personal businesses are allowed, and then we realized that we promote our own businesses and commercial and sometimes our partners, and so we just wanted to make sure that's added so that people aren't like, you're breaking your own rule. So for fundraising purposes, we can post businesses, like dine outs and things, and PTA's fundraisers. Political campaigning, we can't use it for political campaigning because we are a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization. But political issues can be discussed. This is, I guess, kind of like that gray area. You can't endorse a candidate for school board or anything ever. And the listserv shouldn't be used for that purposes, but I guess we can discuss things like that. I don't know, like issues surrounding what can be considered political.
Hey, Bria, can I comment on that one real quickly, or do you want to comment? Save for comments.
Yeah, please.
I may want to take a stab at rewriting that one to give clarity, because it is the case we cannot endorse candidates, but we can, and I think it is appropriate to use the listserv. For example, let's just say our General Assembly comes back into session and they're voting on a budget and they're going to cut the education budget by $1 billion, right? I'm making that up, but that's actually a real thing that's happening in states across the country. And it is completely 501c3 legit for someone to say, hey, contact your local rep to, vote no on the budget cuts. So if it's an issue oriented, right? If it's about an issue or a bill, it's totally fine. It's just the explicit thing that you could not do is around candidate campaigning and endorsement.
So the listserv cannot be used for political campaigning or candidate endorsement. Is that fine?
Sure. And I think it's more that it's not just the political issues being endorsed. I guess when I read, it's not just that political issues can be discussed. When I read this, it sort of felt like it could seem like there's a restriction on that sort of issue advocacy that I just described. Like I think it can and should be used. You know, I'm curious what Amanda thinks, but like in our like equity and advocacy role, I'm not quite sure how we do advocacy if we can't, if there's an opportunity where you know, you just bring an issue. You're not telling everyone they have to support an issue or not support it, but bringing attention to the community around issues that impact our school and the broader, you know, and the district, I think is important and shouldn't be limited. Personally, people may want to push back on that, but it is definitely allowable activity for a 501c.
Yeah, I don't think that this disallows it because it says political issues, however, can be discussed. So maybe political issues and advocacy can be discussed.
Sure. Yeah, sounds great.
Yeah, it's just a fine line between saying don't vote for this person.
Exactly.
Vote for this issue. Yeah. Okay, copyrighted material, nothing changed there. If you don't own it, don't post it. Members should not name individuals anyway that is negative, harmful, or derogatory, even if the individual is not a member of the listserv. Members especially should not use the names of staff, parents, SWAT students when discussing sensitive issues. If there's a specific issue with a certain person, please communicate with there. We also were curious if we should, this was a hard one because technically you can not name someone but name someone in the listserv very easily. Like if I was to be like my kid's teacher, well, you know I'm talking about Amanda. Like people who know me know I'm talking about Amanda. I think that was our issue, is that like fact that like it's very easy to call someone out in a small school without even having to like say their name. And we didn't know if there was a way to get even kind of talk about that. Yeah, that's just some food for thought. We didn't end up coming up with anything for it, but it is something to like realize that it's kind of going against our rules when you name someone without naming them. But members should not forward messages to the listserv that were sent to them individually. I don't think we've had any issues with this, and I hope we don't. Do not post information. Okay, yeah. Avoid speculation was also one that we were like, do not post messages with information that might not be true or might be partially true. And our overall recommendation changed because it used to be just follow the golden rule, which is very vague. And so we changed it to assume the best in each other's comments, try to disagree in a friendly and respectful way, communicate with the PTA board if you feel you've been violated in any way on this listserv. Just as a more, I think, concise way of discussing the golden rule. And then we just changed. There was a bullet point that talked about explicitly about changing the frequency right above this, but it was also in this one. So we just combined the two notes. But does anyone else have anything that they think, any issues they see with these listservs or anything that they think should be changed? We also, so Bethany agreed to be a new listserv moderator because we do currently really only have one, and it's Emily Daly. She's been moderating for a while. And she's pretty much been doing all the moderating. I can see what happens, but a lot of times I'm working, and so I don't get a chance to moderate it like it should be. So just having that other set of eyes on it would be helpful. And then realizing that a lot of this is going to be up to discretion, like some things that are maybe wouldn't be considered offensive to some, but would be offensive to other. I think there's that line is like, you have to kind of figure out how you navigate what isn't is not offensive and what isn't is not going to cause harm to the community. And so it's just kind of extending a lot of leeway and understanding towards them that that the moderators might not always get it right, but they will try to be like fair in their assessment. Anything anyone else to add?
Bria, did you say that you were looking for other additional moderators?
Yes. Who? I don't know who's speaking.
It's Anna. Just for the minutes, my cat was throwing up, so I had to walk away.
Yes, we are. I think probably. I mean, we said we have to have at least 2, but I do think, depending on like sometimes the listserv, like sometimes I would get notifications that like 10 emails had come in the span of like 15 minutes. So I do think that it can be a lot for even just 2 people to deal with. So I'm okay. I would be okay with having like a group of 4 or 5 moderators, especially because then they can maybe take shifts, because some people like to post at like 11 o'clock at night, and not everyone's awake then.
Do you, just given the circumstances that caused us to revisit the policy, I do wonder if there is given, like you said, Bria, the subjective nature of what is and isn't offensive, if there should be some sort of process where at least if there's an email in question that the moderator who first sees it should flag it for the other moderator, so there is some group decision around what gets passed through, and not just the first person who happens to see the message.
Yeah.
Because even in that group, there may be differences in opinion over what should go and what shouldn't.
I know normally, so I know right now it's just me and Emily. So we've been just emailing back and forth if there's like a very big issue, but I will talk to all of the whatever group of moderators we end up with, and maybe create some type of group chat so they can discuss amongst themselves. Is like things like we did like a sample, like something that could potentially what were we talking about? Oh, this is under the avoid speculation, because we realized that some things that get posted are 100% speculative. Like they're very much opinion based. They're like and they can be very emotive. And we're trying to figure out where that line is as well. Like we were talking about, if someone, like we know in a few weeks at some point we're going to have like the vaccine come up on the listserv. It just is, and we realize that could be like a hot topic, but also it's a thing that has like a lot of emotions behind it, and things that sometimes carry speculation. And we were just discussing, how do we like as just an example, how do we decide to navigate that? Is it asking people to just provide facts, or to just provide sources from like other places and not necessarily like insert their own necessary agenda? We just didn't know what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. Like if someone comes on the listserv saying, don't get the vaccine, it's going to kill you. Like where do we draw the line is where we were trying to and I'm just throwing this out just because it's something that I've dealt with in my own personal like parenting group, of like things that come up and that can get really heated really fast, and trying to avoid mass chaos on the listserv.
Yeah, I think for me though, and I'm not going to speak for Patty, but I'm just definitely speaking for myself. I would like to limit it to issues that directly affect George Watts Elementary, and things that we have control over, as well as things that build community within our school. And your personal preference about whether you decide to take the COVID vaccine is not education related, or George Watts related, or public school related. It's not DPS, because DPS is not sanctioning, they're not forcing it, right? So it's not something that, DPS is saying that you have to have in order to return to school. Now, if that becomes a law, then I think that would definitely be a topic of discussion. But I mean, I would really like to see more. There's a lot of non-education or /DPS/George Watts things that are topics of conversation. And I would really like to see it more focused on like, how do we build community within our own school that are related to education.
Well, sorry. The vaccine was clear, like just a hypotheticals. We were just trying to figure out, like, just trying to like walk through what post could possibly be coming up. So like we haven't had that post come up.
No, I get it. You were just using that as an example, but there are other examples that have come through that have been what may be seen as inconsequential or not inappropriate. That's not the word I'm looking for, but that only it's not for the good of the order, I guess is what I'm saying. So it just seems like they're almost like an acceptable use, what kinds of guidelines should we have for, but then that also like leads to censorship, and that, I think there is some kind of, I don't know if gray area is the right term I'm looking for, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I
understand.
We allow people to say without censoring, but then also what kinds of guidelines are we giving them?
Bria, this is Bethany.
Oh, hey.
I just wanted to, can you hear me?
Yep, you're good.
Okay. I just wanted to comment on what Sonia was just saying, because right now it says that message topics include things that involve the surrounding community. So I don't know, I mean, based on what she's saying, maybe that's a little bit too broad, and we want to keep it just to Watts, PTA, and DPS, or maybe not even DPS. I don't know. Well, that's kind of, I mean, that's the gray area, because a lot of what goes on at DPS is relevant to Watts also. But maybe if we removed surrounding community, it would keep the messages a little bit more in line with what Sonia was talking about.
Thank you, Bethany. And you were much more succinct and well-spoken than I. And again, I'm not, if you wanted to clean up the language in it, I think getting Patty's input on it would be beneficial as well, because I certainly don't want to speak for her. I don't know what her, priority is. She, it does have some opinions about the listserv and how things have been going this year. So I don't know, Bria, if you want to just reach out to her and ask her, to take a look at this document if she hasn't already.
Yeah, I think the surrounding community, I think is really because Watts is very much a community school, rightly or wrong. Like it's very much like most of the people that go to Watts also live in Watts. And so sometimes it feels like it also gets like used as a Watts neighborhood listserv, not necessarily like a Watts school listserv. But I think there is a Watts neighborhood listserv or Trinity Park listserv. I'm not sure. I don't live there.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was alluding to. The fact that it just seemed very, I don't know, like it just almost, I don't know, there needs to be a bit of professionalism associated with it, because it is school related and it has the PTA name. And so this is not a Facebook page. It's not a, community forum. That's a little more casual. And so I think that's, yeah, just echo what you just said, Bria. That's more of along the lines of what I was thinking.
I'm not against making that distinction, that like we're not the Trinity Park listserv, just because there is a Trinity Park listserv, but also B, not all of our families live in this area, and I feel like a lot of people forget that at Watts, that it's not just Watts families that live here, but I don't know. I also don't remember just anything super egregious that isn't some way tied to Watts. So I'm trying to like go through the listserv on my phone and see if I see anything that maybe probably shouldn't have been in the listserv. It seems like a lot of like, well, the past month was like a lot of like parent asking and holiday or gifting reminders and stuff. But I think that's something we can definitely take a look at and see if that's actually, if it's a big issue or not. What else? Yeah, I think the biggest issue was making sure that like, and I don't even know if it's in here or not, is making sure that like people realize that we're like that Watts is ultimately a community and our messages need to not, you can have opinions, but your opinions shouldn't be harmful to other people in the community, I guess. That was the issue we had with the issue that led to this, was that the messages that were coming through were considered harmful to some staff, to some people all over, and it was just becoming a big mess. And how do we as a PTA handle that? Because we don't want anyone on the PTA listserv to feel called out or, you know, like they're being attacked or anything. And so how do we word that, I guess, is my question. How do we word that? How do we get that messaging out that like the PTA needs to be like a safe, I guess, space for like everyone on the PTA, and not just, and like, yeah, you, and that if maybe rewording your opinion, if like if it's not good, maybe telling our moderators that like, if it feels like this is attacking someone, even if there isn't a name behind it, but it just feels like it's like attacking like a group of like administrators or staff or what have you, if like that, maybe we consider not approving that and send a message to the thing like, hey, can you reword this? Can you make it not harsh? Can you send it directly to whoever you have an issue with? I think that was a big thing, is that we had a lot of things that should have been directed not to us, because we know that the PTA isn't a governing body for the school. We don't make decisions for the school, but there were a lot of things that were coming to the listserv that were like, do this, do that. We think that you should do this, and we're like, well, we can't do any of this. Yeah, I don't know. This has been kind of tough to try to figure out, to cover all our bases and make sure like that that the PTA is for everybody, and isn't going to have people feeling upset of messages that come through. If anyone has any suggestions on how to make that come through in a concise way, please let me know. And anything else in here, Matt? It looks like we're probably gonna need to run this. Maybe run this by. I also don't know if we have quorum to even vote, even if we did. But to like run this by every person who sees it, everyone on the board, if you want, could you look at this and see if there's anything else that you would change? Maybe anything you think needs to be added. Any other thoughts?
Looks good.
Okay. I will send this out to you all. And maybe me, Bethany, and Megan will look at it one more time to see if we can make it a little bit more concise with some of the issues that came up tonight. And then I'll send it out to you, and then we can vote on it through email, because that's easy to do as well. But all right, that was the last thing I have on the agenda. Does anyone else have anything that they would like to add? Awesome. Well, call for February calendar entries. Please give them to the communication team by January 21st. If you have anything that you want added to the calendar, pay your dues if you have not. If you need to be reimbursed or submit an SPNI request, all the forms can, I think, be found on our website, but they're also always at the bottom of our agenda, so you can look them up. With that, and yeah, I hope to see all of you next Monday at.
Sorry to interrupt, Bria. I have just one quick thing. Are there things on the PTA calendar for March if we did the book fair, the book sale, a weekend in March?
We have a PTA meeting March 8th, I believe. That might be a wrong date. But other than that, no. I also don't know when spring break is, but
it's the last week. Yeah, it's last week of March. And
March 8th.
So Joanna, you don't have your events are all in February, right?
Yes. Sorry.
That's okay.
Yes. Let me get to some light. Here we go. Yeah, all in February and virtual, most of it, and on your own. So nothing like a specific event is planned just yet. We're hoping for something, but we got to figure out the details really quickly. Okay.
Yeah. No, we don't have anything planned for March at all, besides that one PTA general meeting on the 8th.
Sonia, do you feel like there might be a possibility where we could combine a pickup line with the book sale, or do you think that's probably crossing too many lines?
Are you talking about supply pickup?
Yeah.
Yeah. Supply pickup is fluid, so people just come at their
right. I'm just wondering if we somehow did something on a Friday,
like a drive-through.
Yeah, if it was coordinated and we had I don't know, balloons and some display of some of the books at the pickup and we sat there and I don't know. Do you think that's an okay thing to do? We don't want anything on campus at all.
No, I'm concerned with capacity and social distancing. That's really where we would have to really be the most cautious about is if people are getting out of their car, then we need to limit how many people are in the area at the time, and then also how far apart they are. It's different when they're just in their car, and driving through and picking up things because, we can just hand them stuff and they drive away. But
okay, we can have a conversation about it maybe when we have some more solid ideas. I just didn't know if it was a total no-go, but it might be something that could work if we figured out.
Yeah, if we hash out the details and we the social distancing and limiting the number of people that are in that area at one time, those are the big priorities.
Okay, thanks. Sorry to tag that on the end. Thanks, guys.
You're great. Awesome. Well, I hope to see all of you at the meeting next Monday. I think at 6. I need to verify that, but we will be sending out some information by Friday night, I guess, so people know. And then, yep. Well, I hope you all have a good rest of your evening and getting your kids ready for the first full day back at school tomorrow. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.